Okay, recording in progress. All right, so thanks so very much to everyone who donated to PayPal to support the families who were affected by the fire. The Hampden Family Center, I have old information. So as of I think Friday, we had collected, I believe, $11,000. So way to go, everybody. Thank you so much. So in addition to the $1,000 in gift cards that Giant offered, we also received, I believe it was $3,000 from folks who came to the spaghetti dinner last Friday at Good Shepherd. And so just huge thanks to everyone who has really been so generous in reaching out to help our neighbors in need. It's really inspiring. So huge thanks. All right, a couple of quick announcements before I turn it over to Marie. One is that we do have a neighborhood walk. It's June the 3rd. We'll be putting out information about that. It's with Councilman Torrance. So of Hampden, right, we have 2 different districts. So we have the pleasure of having 2 council people. And so it will be the side of Hampden that is represented by Councilman Torrance. I beg your pardon? Roland West, there you go. So I encourage you to come out. This is an opportunity to share your thoughts, concerns about what?
So we are in the middle of a blitz in terms of like city services. So my staff is full of 311s for traffic calming, is full of potholes. You see our beautiful roadway that I have to curse some people out for, and you have it done. But we're getting there, but we just need to know what you need. We have lighting assessment happening on Ash Street because the lighting is not good. So we have a number of issues to talk about, but if you have something, if you can't join us, tag us on it, let us know, email me or my staff so we can add it, because like guess what? You didn't know that you need more swings at Roosevelt Park. So we had to get more swings at Roosevelt Park. So just let us know and we'll get you some more.
Great. So this is an opportunity to actually walk on the street and point out some things. For those in the back who are standing, we actually have a number of seats. We have 4 seats up front. And so we welcome you to come right on in. Thanks so much for being here. All right. What else to tell you? There is a social event that's being planned for, I believe it's the 3rd week in June. So stay tuned for that. And I think those are the key updates. We did hear from the director of the rec center about some updates around their safety protocol. So we're pleased to hear that. I'm sorry that Ms. Hill wasn't able to join us this evening to share herself. But those are some of the key updates. All right. With that, I'm going to welcome Marie Anderson to join us and to share information with us about zoning and land use in Hampden. There we go. All right.
Please. Thanks, team. Could you all tell that I used to be a volunteer coordinator in my past life?
1, 2, eyes on her.
Thank you, everyone. Is it okay if I close the meeting chat? Or
yes,
keep it open?
You can, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I know folks have a lot of questions, so I'll keep the presentation quick and dirty, but this can be sent out afterwards. So all of the tools that I have at my fingertips, you will have at yours. So hopefully, I know Hampden is a place that has experienced a lot of development, but if we could all just understand that, like, not everybody is on the same page. So if you know this stuff already, thank you. Please be peer educators with your neighbors. If this information is new to you, that's okay. We're all learning together. Gonna move on.
So if you click here, that will take you, there you go.
Okay, here's my super cute, super queer picture. So my name is Marie McSweeney Anderson. I use she, they pronouns. I am relatively new to the planning department. So in the context of the planning department, I've only been there for 1 year. So that makes me a baby planner. There are lots of folks who have been there for years, some for decades. It's a really strong crew. But I do have a background in community development work. And for the last 10 years, I've been working along the York Road corridor. So what do community planners do? It really runs the gamut. The day-to-day looks really different, which is something that I love and appreciate. How many folks get my newsletter? Yes, okay. Next time I come, I hope that I see more hands raised. There will be an opportunity for you to take a QR code screenshot. It's just a little bit of an update every week about what I do with my week. I have over 52 different neighborhoods in the Northern Planning District, one of which is the illustrious and beautiful Hampden. But it pretty much is from the Alameda to 83 city county line down to Charles Street or Charles Village. So it's a pretty large swath. And just to give a little bit of context, when I first came on board, I did an evaluation of the VBNs in the district. How many folks know what VBN is? Vacant building notice. That's cool. So just to give you a little context, over half of the vacant buildings in my entire district are situated in 2 neighborhoods. Period. Right? So, you know, if you don't see me all the time, if I'm not here all the time, it's because you all are super organized. You're super strong. Just by looking at the folks in this room, you have great communication with each other. Not all of the neighborhoods in the Northern District have the same amount of capacity and communication. So I really applaud you all for that. So looking into tools, how many folks know what Code Map is? Boom. Okay, by the end of tonight, you're gonna know what Code Map is. I'm so excited. So Code Map is the perfect nosy neighbor, I call it. You know, if you want to know who owns that building next door to you, how long they've owned it, what year that building was built, Code Map has all of that information available publicly. So we're gonna look at that tonight. And the zoning code. The zoning code is over 400 pages long. So I don't expect anyone here to be experts on it. I myself am not an expert on it. But one thing that is really helpful is the zoning key, the zoning legend, which we see up here, and we'll go over again tonight. And then I just popped up a little map. So this is zoning districts in Hampden. You all have a bunch of different zoning districts. You have some commercial, you have some residential, you have educational. So we'll take a look tonight at a few examples. And for folks who didn't raise your hand, get out your cell phones right now. Take a little scan, see. I also used to work at a college, so.
Excellent. For folks online, as Marie's been speaking about different resources like the newsletter or Code Map or the legend, I've been putting the links for those in the chat.
Okay. Again, this is going to come out to you too. So if you don't get it, no worries. And this is my contact information just in case. Super easy. Marie.Anderson with an SON at baltimorecity.gov. Okay, we're going to do control.
Control tab. Oh, no, sorry.
Alt tab.
Alt tab.
I'm learning new things, y'all.
Yep. And that will take you over to this one. And then if you use, here you go. So which is the document? You have them up at the top, so you can select which you would like to use.
Okay, so I'm gonna go off of here. Okay, so apologies if I'm not looking at you. But first we're gonna start on Code Map. So if folks just look up Code Map Baltimore on Google, this will come up to you. There are 2 different types of websites. One is an internal website and then one is external. So if somebody could shout out your address.
838 West 32nd Street. Get ready, everybody, you're gonna find out all the good things.
All right.
Do you own your home? Okay, so I'm gonna cut out of here. All right, so is this your house?
That's us, yes.
That's where you live?
No, it's like right across from the opening between the
838.
838.
Push on the arrow, push on the arrow, it'll come up, push on the arrow, okay, then go up to the top arrow. Not that, there you go.
Here we go.
That's my name.
Kathleen Littleton. Okay, so I want y'all to notice these links down below. You can see the year that it was bought. Congratulations, you're a relatively new owner. You can see how much your neighbors bought their house for. Thank you for being willing to share this evening. You can also see all their dirty little secrets. Do they have any notices on their property? Do they have any citations? What are they like? You've seen a lot of people going in and out of the property. Like, what's going on? Are they doing work without a permit? You can check to see if they have permits. So there's lots of information that's available. You can Google Earth it. I think you all know how to do that anyways. STAT takes you to the State Department of Taxes and Assessments. So again, you can see exactly how much square footage they own as well, who the past owners are. So a lot of times when folks come to me with questions, this is like the initial place that I send them to. And so it also tells you zoning. So you're in a R7 zoned property. And so we're going to go over to the handy dandy zoning code. Dun, dun, dun. But this can be really overwhelming. But the thing that I really want you all to know and to utilize is the zoning tables. So something that the folks who are making the zoning code, there was a rewrite in 2017 that took a long time to get there, but they created zoning tables. So let's go see an R7 district and see what's possible. So OS is open space. So it gives you a handy dandy table of what is P, permitted. C is conditional by board. So that means it has to go through the board, BMZA, the Board of Municipal Zoning Appeals. And then council people, what's CO? What does that mean, y'all? Yes. So when we're talking about residential, we really start kind of like a R1A. This is when you think of like the Homelands and Guilfords, very large amount of green space with probably a very large house on it. And then the further up you go, it kind of gets less restrictive. So here we are in R7s. So all of the Ps are things that are permitted with a caveat, right? Okay, so from R7 to R10, multifamily. So let's say you were like, I'm going to move out of the city. I'm having kids. I'm moving to the suburbs. Wah, wah, wah. We know that trope, right? But we want to rent out our property. And it's not going to be enough to rent out our property for just one person. We want to make it more profitable. We want more people to live there. So in R7 through R10, that is allowable. However, in R7 and R8, you would have to
Get a conditional by ordinance.
So you would have to call up your council person and say, hey, I want to put this through. And then your council person, if they're smart, they would come to their neighborhood association and be like, hey, what do y'all think of this? Do you think I should put in this bill? And so it's a little bit harder to do that, I guess is what I'm saying. So that's just one example of potentially how something could shift from just a single family house to a multifamily dwelling. Say more about that.
No more than 4 person. So as soon as the fifth person enters, it's a robber.
Right.
They cannot lift it.
Unless there's a reason unless. Actually, if you have dinner, can't do it with an ordinance. It's a reasonable accommodation, in which case it's a house where people with disabilities are gonna live, they're allowed to have more than four unrelated. And disabilities is very broadly defined, so it's not just physical or emotional, but it's also people who are in recovery. It also includes that. That's interesting.
Thanks, folks.
Right, or people who are transitioning from one situation to another in terms of coming back from incarceration.
Yes, thank you all for saying that. And for folks online, just letting you know, unless there's reasonable accommodation for more than 4 folks living in one house, it is not permitted. So we have R7. I want to give an example of R5 and R6, which I also know that you all have here. No,
There's C's. Huh?
are there some R5s? I'm pretty sure there's some. So R5, I just want to give,
L7's county.
Someone online says we're R6.
okay, you're R6. What's your address?
Thanks, Rachel. 1407 Morling Avenue.
1407. Where's my clicker?
What'd you say?
Oh, you may be further over. So there you go.
Oh. 1407. Morling.
Yeah, MOR.
1407.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I can't actually see it on this. This takes a little minute to think about it. Okay, so this is R6, it's right off of Buena Vista. I love it. All right, so I live in an R5 or an R6 property. Again, I would like to make my property more profitable to me. So I would like to turn it into multifamily. Do folks think I am allowed to do it in the house that's there right now?
I have no idea.
Okay, good. That's fine.
How can we find out?
Okay, so what was that? You cannot. So in the house that's there in R5 and R6s, if you do what's called a conversion, if you chop up your house into 2 or more dwelling units, that is not allowed. That's like illegal. Like if you see somebody doing that, you should probably call 311. However, if you're like, I'm going to make this super profitable and I have a bunch of money to do demolition and I take down my property and I'm going to build something new, you can build multifamily in R5 and R6.
So how can we find out what are the things you can do? What are the
Chart.
things you can't do?
Yes.
The magic charts.
So these are the zoning tables.
The tables that you see on the table. So if you can like the arrow the zoning tables. And then scroll down, you can see all of them. So there's the bulking yard.
Yes. So
Got it.
as
So in terms of how we should read it, we should read it as if I'm an R5 or R6, whichever column, can I have a daycare? Can I have a fraternity or sorority? Can I have a whatever? And that's
with an asterisk.
Yes.
Star.
Bulking.
okay. And does P mean permitted or permitted?
It is allowed.
It's allowed. Okay, thank you. Okay.
If it's blank, it's not allowed at all. Like you can't do any of it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what, Caitlin? Caitlin, say hi. Who are you, Caitlin?
Oh, I'm a land use planner, Department of Planning, and that's the downtown planner and a quasi chat planner, a little bit of everything.
Caitlin does everything. Everyone who's online, Caitlin Audette, she's amazing. Everyone who's here too, she's amazing. So you see that all of the commercial uses are conditional by board in R5 through R10. So we don't have time to really go through it tonight. So that's why I'm showing it to you to encourage you to kind of look at it on your own. But what Caitlin is referring to is the bulk and yard regulations. So this tells you how much space you need. This tells you how high you can go. And it also deals with kind of specific uses as well. So you see row house, multifamily, residential care facility, etc. And so. Do you have a second?
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is super helpful.
Do we
I'm
wanna get
guessing that,
commercial?
yeah, I'm guessing that the question on everyone's mind is, could we look at this, but for specifically the, yeah,
So good.
what's on Falls Road?
Question.
Yeah,
in
Catherine.
general. Can you talk a little bit about the process of perhaps revisiting the zoning for a property, or what it looks like to say, okay, well, this is zoned for residential, but we want it to be commercial, or this is commercial and we want it to be residential? Can you talk a little bit about
I
what?
was like, y'all want to talk about that?
It's really restricted because I'm going through it now in another community where I'm arguing that it's not spot zoning.
Everything in community is possible.
Everything is spot zoning, actually, yeah. However, so it has to be a change in circumstance. Case in point, if I knock down some homes and it's a green space and no one's using it for residential, I can argue that the change in circumstances has allowed me to change the code, change its actual zoning so that we can have a park space, and those would be different regulations for the house. Or case in point, you have an industrial use for location, and then I hate to use the word brown.
We don't have these around here. So.
But I have another portion of the district was industrial. Some people want to make them into maker spaces, so they want to look at whether it falls under DOT standards, so they can get transit-oriented development to get funding for connected and transit. So there's a lot of things that can change the idea of what the space looks like, but it's based off of uses. Case in point, there's a parking lot at Mondawmin, and we want to put senior homes on that parking lot. It's controlled by a PUD, and now we're like, let's put DOT so I can put the housing there. So it's a change.
Basically, there's two criteria for changing the zoning.
Mhm.
Either A, there the changes in the circumstance in the neighborhood, or B, there was an error when we did the zoning code.
And there's
That's
going
it.
to be errors because, it's a huge.
Oh, yeah, we had a huge error in my district.
And it happens, so those are really easy.
Yeah, those are sort of easy, but the other one, in terms of justifying the changes in an area. So I'll just give you an example. In my district along Harford Road across from the park. There's 3 commercially zoned blocks. 2 of them, the community association wants to rezone to residential, but the rest of the community wants to rezone to keep it there, to be able to have potential for residential on the bottom. Retail on the bottom and commercial on the top. I meant commercial on the bottom.
I got you.
On the top, excuse me.
Mixed use.
And so, he's right.
So this is governed by state ordinance too, so the state law that says that you have to. There have to be a reason, 2 reasons.
Okay.
So it's not like city.
It has to be either of the 2. It doesn't have to be both.
And then if you want to do it, it's an ordinance and you have to go through your companies.
I do want to make sure that we talk about the Falls Road case, but do you want to share your question?
I mean, regardless of what it says up there that you can use this, you can do that, if it's gonna change the landscape of the feel of the neighborhood. And I don't know how tall this structure is that they're intending on putting up there. I mean, those buildings that are there look to me to be sort of historical. And it just seems like bit by bit, they keep adding things on that are changing the look and the landscape. And I know in our neighborhood, they insisted on putting these apartments down at the end of our street. And we already had a part of something. And
So I
now-
think your comments are directed specifically to this project.
Yes.
So how about we hold on those? And we'll continue on talking about zoning generally, and we'll come back to you.
Yeah. And I'll talk a little bit about how to engage in the development process as well. And I know that's why a lot of folks are here. So to give an example of 3850, what's going on at 3815 Falls Road? So again, you type in the address, you can see what it's zoned. It's zoned C1. So what are you gonna do?
expeditiously show us what it means.
Find it in the zoning tables. Okay. Hey, don't freak out. All of these things are permitted, but that doesn't mean they're gonna happen. So daycares are allowed, live work dwellings, multifamily, places of worship, parks or playground. And again, kind of like with residential, it gets a little bit more permissive the higher up you go. And then you want to come down to the bulk. See, there's lots of things. There's lots of things that are possible here. Did I skip it? No. So these are the bulk regulations. And so these are important because if developers want to go kind of over and above the bulk regulations, which means they aren't permitted to do it outright. Some development is permitted to do outright. So there's very little input that is allowable because it's their property, right? So if you want to build a deck on your property and it's allowed, you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to go pull permits and do that. However, if a variance,
I just gotta get this hair out. Sorry.
if a variance is needed, which means, let's say they don't have enough square footage to meet the minimum requirements, or if they want to go over the height, they're going to have to get permission from the BMZA. And so that is one opportunity to be able to engage in the process. So they essentially have to go downtown to the Board of Municipal Zoning Appeals. These are folks that are lawyers who have worked in development, who really follow the zoning code to the letter of the law. So is it legal for you to have this variance in order to do what you want to do? And it's getting a little bit more difficult these days, particularly with variances. You have to show a uniqueness to be able to say, like, this property is unique because XYZ, which is why I need this variance. Do you want to talk a little?
Question for you.
Yes.
So let's say that there's a proposal that's within the bounds of what you are showing us in these tables. But say there's a preponderance of neighbors who feel strongly that they don't like this for any number of reasons. Are there ways that citizens can influence what actually is put on a particular property? Or it's within their rights, and so that's just the deal.
I was like, Caitlin, do you want to talk a little bit about the design, like evaluation of what happens?
Yeah, so in the zoning manual or in the zoning code, there is it enables the creation of the design manual. So in the design manual, we complete review for you want to put a roof deck. I look at every permit for roof decks in the city to make sure they're not too close to the front of the building and they're not going to be an eyesore. So, I look at simple things like that. And I also look at major new buildings. Major new construction goes to UDAP, which stands for the Urban Design and Architecture Advisory Panel. And that's for large scale big things. You might have, right now the Compass, which is the former super block, is going to be coming at some point, so like those are for bigger things. And then some commercial and smaller scale development goes to staff. So that's what I would review. I would go through the manual, and I would also provide feedback to the architect, designer, the team about, if it's appropriate. I can't change what's in zoning code. So I can't say, oh, you know what, this building shouldn't exceed 35 feet. They're allowed to go up to say, 60 feet or 100 feet, depending on where they're located.
The height, is that determined by the height of the ground from which you start or the height of the road?
So there is a legal definition. I believe it is in table. Oh goodness. I guess not the verbiage today.
Again, this is a 400.
So we can get back.
I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a building front, so they define it as like, if there's a very specific definition, because we obviously need to have it, so that everybody's measured from the basic. I believe it's, something to do with the building front, and if it's a flat roof, it, where the flat roof is, it's a stable roof, and everybody that's how it is.
Or if there's a setback.
Yeah, that's, sorry, I can't. No one has this memorized, we all just have it tabbed and come to it all the time, we do lots of keyword searches. So I'm looking at basic urban design principles. Does it face the street? Is it appropriate for, general development in the area? But when we use it a little bit more broadly than a lot of people might like, because again, I can't say, oh, I can't be the zoning code. People have to be able to look at a table and know what they can do on their property. Imagine if it was you want to know what you can do on your property. So I can't limit him further, but I can say, can you think about shifting where the entrance is so it, faces the street? Can you make sure that you're being a good neighbor on the back side or whatever it is? So those kinds of tweaks.
And so is that, so I heard how you or your office may
There's only two of
influence
us.
this. Okay, so I heard how you and your colleague might be able to influence this.
So if you don't want to influence it, what
Yeah.
you can do is you can write me, call me. That's why I'm here today. I think there are some of your input. I have met with the design team with Marie. We have pre-development meetings for almost every development in the city. It's really a great thing. And we give feedback at that point. And then we also want to hear from the community and we can incorporate that into our review. Even if something goes to UDAP, that is advisory only. And it comes down to staff signing off on a permit. And those are meetings, that public meetings, they're not public hearings in the sense that you can come and you can listen. There's no public testimony. This is time for professionals to provide professional advice. And then the team can speak that, it's just like a staff advice, incorporated into the design. And then we have kind of a iterative process. And then eventually we'll sign off on a permit.
Yeah, so if how many folks maybe have been involved in the bookbindery process? Ish, okay, so did anyone, look at the UDAP hearing or attend?
Yes.
And so I think, sitting in on the UDAP hearing, I was actually really pleased to hear that a lot of the comments that I was receiving from community members were actually addressed by the designers on staff. And so again, Caitlin is here. I am here. Again, we can carry comments back. However, this is not a HOA board, right? These folks own the property. They are allowed to do what is allowable as per law on their property. I will allow Councilwoman Ramos and Councilman Torrance the opportunity to talk about things outside of planning that are also possible too.
I just wanted to note that we're basically at time though. So I do want to respect time. So if we could
I guess we'll just say, everybody should just write to us your thoughts. And then we can also answer additional questions.
Yeah, and I'll offer the same thing I do for most developments in the district. Same to the developer, have check-ins with the community about designs, have those conversations. I have it for Madison Park North and a few other developments, so that people have a space to come have those conversations. And then typically we keep a checklist of all the things that people report up, so that we can see if the developer aggressive or getting aggressive, and really allows our planning staff to have the team.
Summarize, you do love to receive community feedback.
We love it.
Not all hope is lost in terms of conversations and engagement.
Yeah, the goal is to engage. I mean, we want people to have a good conversation with all the information about what this is and what's allowable, and where the touch points can be in terms of things that need community feedback and input. We encourage developers to, always remain open for the kind of feedback. There are times where there are ways to, they don't encourage us to do this, but my predecessor used to rezone stuff all the time just to try to block things, which we don't necessarily want to do. We've been sued for that. And it costs the city a bunch of money. We also, have used historic designation to be able to, we're not gonna stop a development that way, but we're gonna modify it in terms of, well, in this case we did, but, the book bindery, but, we're still gonna have something happen there, with that designation anyway, so, and then there are just times where the communication is just really important because we can't do anything. It's totally within zoning.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to have those conversations, at least to keep things open.
So in Madison Park, for this example, people in Reservoir Hill, the parking is a premium. So every one of the 120 new townhomes have a parking pad in a garage, and that was purposeful because the developer wanted to respond to what the community wanted, because self-sustained parking, they wanted. And it's allowing them to get a grocery store now because they now have parking spots for the grocery store as well, because zoning requires that for the grocery store. So it is just literally having those conversations so that people can have it. And then for a number of people, I know I have issues with runoff in my neighborhood. So one of the things is you can always have a developer address the runoff as well in your project, so that it is environmentally better for you as well as for the community, because sometimes we don't know that water may run differently and end up in your basement, and that's a long-term impact on you.
And if I could add,
I would just say respectfully, I think we really do need to switch now, time wise.
just engagement wise, please come to us with solutions, not just that you don't like the project. And please come to us with solutions, not just that you don't like the project. And just realize, like, all of us are city residents here, so we're neighbors, we know, but solutions-based oriented communication is really helpful.
All right, so I'd like to welcome, I believe it's Garrett and Adam, is that right? All right, take it away, you've got 15 minutes.
As she mentioned, my name is Garrett Adler. I actually live on the 3200 block of Keswick myself. I'm a member of the HCC as well, and friends with a lot of community members, some of whom I see here today. I've been living in this neighborhood for the past 5 years, and Baltimore as a whole for the last 15 years. I've done many renovation projects. I've had many rental properties and always had great relationships with the tenants and had long-term situations. So very familiar with the neighborhood. I've had many properties here. We ended up acquiring these buildings with a portfolio of other houses. So we had to figure out what to do with these particular buildings. They are in extremely bad condition, as most of you I'm sure know. They can't be renovated in a way that makes any sense economically, or in a way that in that location, it's something that makes sense to do. So what we were tasked with is, what can we do within the zoning that it has, which is C1. So clearly the commercial designation was put on in the last master plan zoning manual that was published. So we did, like you're being shown here today, is looking at what can we do with this amount of square footage, with these setbacks, with the height that we can do, what's the best thing that we can do. And and so being a resident of the area, qualitatively, I've been seeing that there's not enough one-bedroom apartments for people that are in that demographic. There's most rental properties are townhouses that are onesie twosie, and you're getting 2 floors and you're getting a yard and all these different things. And there is a contingent of people that would prefer a 1-bedroom that has more services and kind of a centralized location. Also, the restaurants that are surrounding the building are seemingly very successful. So what we're looking to do is have the first floor retail with the use that fits in with these restaurants, and hopefully is the neighborhood involved with a tenant that is plugged in with the neighborhood. So that's kind of how we came to the idea to do what we're trying to do. And then we brought our architect Adam into the project to try to find a design that makes sense with the streetscape. So we spent many months, actually years, thinking about this and going through different iterations of things that we're trying to fit into the streetscape. And this is what we've come up with. Certainly we're open to community involvement. Any input we'll look at and hopefully be able to incorporate into the project. That's certainly our plan, and one of the reasons why we're presenting here today. We understand that parking is a bit of an issue, but in this area, we're not actually required to provide any parking. We are providing 5 spaces. But I'd like to remind everybody that there is a place for buildings without a parking spot for every tenant. That in fact would raise the rent quite substantially. So what we're doing is moderately priced units that, people in a certain area of the market that's not being properly served have an option. So I'm saying if it's a 1-bedroom apartment without parking, it's going to be a certain price. If you go to some of the other buildings,
What kind of price are we talking?
I mean, we're still discussing, we don't have a price in mind just yet. We don't have a price in mind. We're still going through the analysis. This could be 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. We don't know what the market's going to look like. But what I am saying is that a lot of the other apartment buildings in town come with parking and they're very expensive. So this is, if we don't have parking, it's a more moderately priced unit for a segment of the market that does exist and I think are a valuable part of the community.
How are you proposing a 28-unit building with 5 parking spots?
Like I said, the zoning code provides, with a C1 zoning, you don't have to have any parking. So the decision makers in the city decided that with this zoning, they aren't requiring parking.
I think there's interest in seeing what you are proposing, so I'd
So
encourage you to start.
Thank you for allowing us to present. My name is Adam Carballo, from Carballo Architecture. We're a local architecture firm. We're based in Fells Point. And as Garrett mentioned, they acquired these lots on Falls Road, which is part of that commercial corridor along Falls Road. Most of a good portion of it is actually C1 zoned. We looked at a variety of different options for these buildings. In fact, initially we had looked at renovating each individual building as a 6-unit apartment building, converting it as by right to make 4 6-unit apartment buildings. We looked at that. We looked at the efficiency of what that does. 4 separate staircases. This building actually has a change in elevation of nearly 18 feet from Falls Road to the alley at the rear. There's a tremendous hill and a lot of steps going up to the front door. We looked at this as, if I put effectively 24 units sort of crammed into 4 row houses, I'm not really providing very good space. We looked at that as, and the sort of better option we looked at was, well, what if we raised this property and actually lowered the elevation so that we could have step-free access from Falls Road, and sort of consolidate these lots. What we came up with was an option that, again, by right.
Click the very bottom right-hand button. Yes.
There we go. Okay, perfect.
One more.
Okay. You can see the existing properties. So what we looked at was consolidating these lots and providing one structure, again, by right, for the number of units, the lot coverage, the building height, and the uses, and lowering the building so that it could actually have a step-free access. One that opens up, again, with the retail component on the ground floor. We were very sensitive in actually creating this sort of step-free access, but also the opportunity for a sort of outdoor seating area for potentially a restaurant or cafe, something that's going to not only engage the street, but also engage the other restaurants and other sort of commerce that's on Falls Road. The units themselves, as you can see, the ground floor of the existing units is somewhere around where the second floor is of this one. It's pretty substantial, the height. But again, looking at this as a 60-foot building meets to the letter of the law of the zoning code for C1. But how that engagement, we are actually now able to provide wheelchair accessible, step-free access, really to provide access to more people for this ground floor, but also the residents of the property.
I have a question from online. Do you have already in mind whether these would be one bedroom or a mix or?
There are going to be a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms, mostly 1 bedrooms. There are going to be a handful of studios. I'm also, sort of happy to say that a number of these units actually do have, private outdoor space, by the way, balconies. There are sort of modest roof decks for some of the upper floor units. We're still further developing the interior layout, but we do want to provide, handicap accessibility to this building, both for the retail space as well as the interior of some of these units. And as Garrett mentioned, we are providing, 5 parking spaces at the
Or people to shop.
there are, as far as like the management of the building, I can't really speak to that, but there are 5 parking spaces that are available. I mean, not any more than a business on the avenue. Yeah, yeah.
So, so I'd like to keep this orderly. So there's a question at the back and there are about 3 online. So gentlemen, could you share your name, please?
Quick point of that, I just want to say I find it offensive that you said you don't have a price in mind before you even bid on this, to purchase it, you have numbers. You have, they should help our intelligence. Number 2, did you take into account the face, the profile of the neighborhood and matching it instead of maximizing the profit? And just clearly, you're maximizing your profits, and it's an insult to say anything other than that. We're not stupid. And just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something.
Yes, yeah, understood. So I'd like to stick with the questions for now for clarification. So there's a question online about variances needed for the project. Are there any variances that are required for?
I asked a question and I wasn't impressed by that.
Sir, we did not have a price in mind for the rents. This is still, we're still trying to, we don't have this approved. This is.
Not.
And what is?
So we bought this as part of a portfolio. And from there, we developed some of the properties. We did not have in mind what we're doing now at that point.
So you in mind matching the aesthetic of the neighborhood?
When we're talking price point right now. So as far as market price is concerned, once we're done with the project, we will have to assess the market rate value.
So doing this to lose money. And what about the face of the neighborhood?
Again, we have something right now, but we're interested in community, oh, I'm Dan Barron, I'm part of the development team, I apologize. I just, once you start saying we're attacking your intelligence, we're insulting your intelligence, that's not our directive. And it's not,
but it's your directive, but we're not stupid, we know use the numbers in mind.
Yeah. Oh, again,
Just freeze, stand, don't engage.
again, we're just not trying to insult anybody. Okay.
Can we see the rest of?
Yeah, anything else that you want to?
And again, what we have right now are early conceptual elevations. This is part of why we're here. We're here to listen to feedback. We're working closely with the planning department, with Caitlin. These are groups that this is part of this process. So we, welcome the opportunity to come here and present what really is sort of early stages of the development process. So.
Online question, are you making the units wheelchair accessible since you're making the building accessible?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
All of the units or just a few?
Not all the units, but as per building code requirement, as well as the ADA 2010 requirements. We have not identified the parking spaces yet.
Great, looks like there's a question. Hey folks, it looks like there's a question at the very back of the room.
I heard 24 to 28 units, is that correct?
28 total.
28 units.
Yes.
Do you have a range of square feet per unit? Or are they all gonna be the same size?
Well, there are some studio apartments, which I believe, Ethan, what about 600 So about 600 square feet for a studio apartment. One bedrooms, I believe, are 800 to 900 square feet, and two bedrooms, I believe, are 1,300 square feet. So that there are generous size apartments. These are not shoebox apartments by any means.
So question here from the side of the room.
Yeah, so Avenue, we already have a number of challenges with parking, and I would love to be able to say like, oh, I can live in this neighborhood car free. But unfortunately, the transit is not, where we need it to be. And so I'm just really struggling to understand how you can sit here and say that 5 spaces is really generous, because like I already come home and I can't find a space to park at. And as a woman, I don't want to have to walk 4 blocks home late at night. When I get home from work at, to put that out. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, have you guys thought through parking garages? Have you looked at another lot nearby where there could be parking for residents? Because like the reality is that if you're saying there's 28 places and there's 2 people, or if there's 2 bedrooms, that could be 4 people. That's a lot of cars really fast. Yes. And especially if then there's workers, if there's handicap spots, like the math is not mapping up for me. So I'm very curious to hear what other thoughts are for solutions, because like the parking situation needs to get figured out. By spots unacceptable.
And to the council people, where you put in some permit we park permit parking for Cox, Morley, and Delwood, where we.
Conduit.
And 38th Street.
Permit parking.
Starting to look at some solutions, so I think that's.
We've had a problem with the parking on Delwood since January, and it's almost June and nothing's been resolved.
Okay, so I hear you. I don't think right now is the time to address that particular, but we do, yes. So we have basically gotten to the time that we have allowed for the meeting. If you would like to have 1 minute to wrap up the rest of your the proposal, I know you have 2 more slides if you want to show those quickly. And let's use the rest of our time to talk about when is there another time that we can get together to like truly air the concerns, because obviously there are a lot of concerns or comments that folks would like to offer. So let's find another time for this. So go ahead, 1 more minute.
I mean, what we're showing again are sort of early conceptual elevations, the front elevation, the side, as well as the real elevation. So.
Have you considered more parking?
Or less parking?
We have, and we're looking into that, and that's something that we're trying to work out. So that's it's something we've worked very hard on.
Actually, sorry, just veterans work, keep getting together. I just want to speak to the fact that community meetings are really cool, and it's great that they are like, that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you. Last question.
It's about like garbage and dumpage. So the lot, I live right behind the house.
Right.
We actually cleaned up those lots back there, and the apartment building is right across from you guys on 38. They actually have issues with garbage and stuff there.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we actually do have we've incorporated a trash chute into this building, a trash room, with that in mind, so that we can, because there's a lot of people here, people create a lot of garbage. So that is part of our design of the building, is to design that we have a trash chute and trash room for that reason. It will be private hauling. There will not be trash can. There's not going to be 28 trash cans along the alley. So
question for you all. I mean, you all showed up on a Monday, so thank you for that. Would it be possible for folks, I'll have to check with the library to see if this space is available next Monday or the following Monday. Is this a good time for you all to? We are not. Sorry.
It's up to your husband.
Either the first Monday in June or the second. So is that workable for your team?
let's look at a schedule first.
I agree. Let's find a.
We have budget hearings, but if you want, my office can work with ACE that hosts it at the school.
That'd be great.
And
So we'll sort that out.
yeah, we'll work with you to get ACE, and then it's a larger venue where we can all meet. Probably, I don't know if you guys want to do a weekend, so able to power in somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, for weekends,
It's
like an afternoon, so.
Excellent. Oh, ma'am, I believe you have the last comment.
And I promise it's not directly related to parking. You mentioned that these buildings were acquired as part of the portfolio and that some of that portfolio has already been developed. Would you be able to share with us those properties so that we can get a better idea for what your eventual project should look like, how it's affected other neighborhoods, and is that something that we could get so that we can look into it before our next meeting?
And prices.
Yeah, thanks for that question.
Yeah, that's something that, yeah, let's get in touch and then we can share those types of things.
Right now, you can tell us where your properties are.
Yeah, so I look forward to receiving that.
Please be respectful. I mean, rural people here is yelling at us and
It's emotionally charged.
Yeah, it's. You understood how much it affected. All right, so thank you
Neighborhood.
so much to folks for coming out to the meeting. I'd like to take a quick photo to post online, but really appreciate. All It's one of the comments. I might be able to have like. Am I being like, because it's, I'm so glad you came. My Jackie's.
I think that.
You already stopped the. Yeah, I'm with you guys. Okay, and that's an opening the other eventually, you know, because that's a big project. We have us coming down here. Thanks so much. Oh, thank you. Like keep checking in, but I just feel like, you know, people need to know something. To have their voice. Like they can email. You know, they've been getting involved and they like this isn't their only.